This tutorial is for the Inventor Train Wheel Part 2. So in Part 2 we're going to create several different features. We're going to create the center axle hole in the middle of the wheel. We're going to create the platform and the linkage arm attachment point, as well as drill a hole for the linkage arm, or linkage pin rather. And then we're going to cut out these little windows. So we're going to try and do all that in this video. Now, when we created the wheel, we did a revolution. We revolved. So we didn't actually ever draw any circles. So in order to create a hole that lines up in the center of a circle, we need to project the geometry of this circle. So I'm going to create a sketch here. Just right click on the front face, new sketch. And I'm just going to project the geometry of this circle. That's what I want. Finish sketch. That's all I need to do. And this center point is going to become the center of the hole. So I can actually just right click on this circle that I've just created and click hole. And it should be 0.25. Actually, no. The axle is 0.25, so this should be 0.26. Because we want to create a little bit of wiggle room. We want to create a tolerance between the 0.25 axle bolt and the 0.26 diameter hole. So we want there to be just a little bit of wiggle room. And that's it for the hole. So the axle hole's done. The next step is going to be to create the little platform that's going to raise up and come out of the wheel just slightly. And that will allow the linkage arm post to stick out for attachment, and then allow the linkage arm and the linkage pin to be applied. We are going to do something you haven't had to do before. So in this lower part, we're going to put a new sketch right here. Click new sketch. And so we've placed a sketch, instead of it being on the outer surface, we've placed it down on the inner surface. I wanted to make sure that was clear. And in order for us to sketch here where we need to sketch, we're going to do something called slice graphics. So because the sketch plane that I'm in now is in the middle of the part, I can push F7, and that slices my part open, kind of like a bagel. You just cut your bagel in half. So now, inside, we can project the geometry of the center, which I need, so I can get a distance measurement from the very center of the part to the outside. And then I'm going to draw a new circle. I'm going to draw a new circle over here. I want it to be on the x-axis. It's distance away, doesn't really matter because we're going to dimension it. So make sure it's on the x-axis, and then we're going to dimension the center of our bagel to the center of our new circle. And I know it's purple on gray, so it might be hard to read, but when the menu pops up, type in 0.7. And these two circles are exactly 0.7 apart. Now, we already set the diameter for the hole as 0.26. We need to set the diameter of this circle as 0.25. And then we're done, finish sketch. And so now we can see the circle, or at least half of it. The other half is covered up by the raised portion of the wheel. So we want to extrude now, and make sure you're highlighting just this new circle. We want to extrude that 0.375. Now let's rotate it isometric so you can see that it is now 0.375 out, away from the train wheel. That's what we want it to look like. The next thing we want to do is put another sketch on this platform. We want to project geometry of the platform so it gives us the center point. The whole reason we're projecting geometry is to make sure we line up our center points for our circles. Because I'm going to draw another circle right on top of that one, but not as big. So now I've got the larger circle that I extruded outward, and I've got a smaller circle. Let's see what the diameter is for that one. So here we are. The outer circle diameter was 0.25. The inner circle is 0.125. 0.125, that's what we want. So this circle is going to be dimensioned 0.125. And it should be lined up in the center. Finish that sketch. And now we want to extrude this center part. Extrude just the new circle, 0.125. And that's what we should have. The next thing, we're going to drill a hole in this surface. But before we do that, we need to make sure we project the geometry of that center point. So I want you to put a new plane here, or new sketch. So we'll click a new sketch, project the geometry so that we get the center point. And you can finish sketch, that's fine. We just want to make sure we have the center point. Then we're going to put a hole on that center point. Now the hole information is here. It is a diameter of 0.0625 with a depth of 0.25. So a diameter. So we got a straight hole. Right now, the termination doesn't have one. Right now it's going all the way through. We want to set it at a distance. So our depth is 0.25. That's what we want. This is okay. Our diameter, though, has to be 0.0625. And that is it for the linkage arm post. Once again, that's just a place for the linkage arm to attach. And you'll see what the linkage arm is a little bit later. On old-timey trains, they had the bar that went across and connected all the wheels. That's what we're talking about with the linkage arm. All right, the last thing we have to do, which can be a little tricky in itself as well, is cut out holes here. I'm going to cut out holes. We're going to do a little fancy geometry and make the holes look like a toy train as opposed to a Lamborghini rim or something like that. So we're going to do the same idea. We're going to put a sketch here on this flat surface. I'm going to right click on that and put a new sketch. I'm going to slice graphics again. So I'm going to push F7. I want to project the geometry of the center circle again. And I want to draw a line. I'm gonna change it to a construction line. I don't always do that, but in this case, I think it'll be useful. So if we go to line, and then we come over to these formats and click this little red angle, that's a construction line. So it's not going to be a real solid line. It's actually going to be a little dotted line. But I'm drawing it right on top of the x-axis, and that's what I want. I'm going to click OK. The reason I'm doing that is the x-axis isn't actually there. It's not actually a line that I can measure off of. So I have to draw a construction line to mimic the x-axis for measurement purposes. Now, I can draw another line up at an angle like that. Oh, nope. Let's rewind. I want to change it back to solid lines instead of construction. And now I'm going to go back to the center point and I want to draw up at an angle. And this time I'm going to dimension between these two, the construction line and the real line. And that angle measure should be 15 degrees. So let's think about it like this from a geometry mathematics standpoint. I'm cutting 6 windows equidistant apart. A circle is 360 degrees. So if each window is a 30-degree window, how far should they be apart? Well, you've got 6 30-degree windows, that's 180 degrees. And you've got 6 gaps between the windows. So if you have 180 degrees divided by 6, that means each window is the 30-degree window. Each gap between the windows is also 30 degrees. And we'll see that work out. All we're doing is cutting one window, though, and then we're going to do a little pattern feature that's kind of cool. So right now I have this line drawn away from the x-axis. I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to go from the same center point and draw it upward. These two lines, if I'm using the same center point, aren't parallel, and they are going to be a distance of 30 degrees apart. 30 degrees. That's my distance between the windows. 30 degrees. Or within the window. Now the next little part is a little bit trickier. We're given some information here. We're told that the bottom curvature of the window is 0.375. And we're told that the top curvature of the window is 0.625. So let's see how that works out. So 0.375, keep that in mind. Now, I'm going to draw an arc. And this arc is a center point arc. So click on center point arc. The center point is the same center of the rim of the wheel. And I'm going to come up here. We're going to go across like this. So I have drawn a line from one to the other. I'm going to do the exact same thing a little bit further out and cut it across. Make sure you're clicking on the lines that you've drawn. Like on this one, it didn't quite connect. So you see here, if I zoom in, if my computer can handle it, these two did not touch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewind that. I didn't hit my green dot like I should have. So let's rewind that. Center point arc again. Green dot. Make sure I'm on the line. Come across, make sure I end up on the line. So the line should turn purple to make sure I'm on it. Now I can dimension these two. So I'm going to dimension this one. What was my arc dimension? Do you remember? Let's look back. The smaller one was 0.375. The larger one was 0.625. So this one should be 0.375. And this one should be 0.625. So now we have these two lines. This area is going to be the window. That's what I'm going to cut out. So I can actually delete everything but this little shape. So I'm going to go to the trim tool, and I'm going to get rid of this piece and this piece. I'm leaving this line. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this piece. I'm going to leave this part. Get rid of that, and I'm going to get rid of the construction line that we don't need anymore. So now all that's left is this shape here. Finish sketch. That's going to be the window that I'm going to cut out. So how do we do that? Well, we go to extrude. Extrude says select a profile. There's my profile. And then it says, let's look. It's trying to grow it outward, but I want it to be absent of material. I don't want to add material. I want to remove material. So we're going to switch it to a cut. And that is going backwards. And let's make sure it goes all the way through. Yep, it's going all the way through. That's what we want. And now we can click OK. And now we have a window that we've cut. The last part of this is to create, instead of one window, we want to create 5 more for a total of 6. And we're going to use what's called a pattern tool. we are going to pattern in a circular fashion this hole. So if we go up to the bar at the top, and we come over to patterns, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different patterns. We're going to choose the circle pattern. It says, what feature are we trying to pattern? We're going to click on the window. Now, you need to make sure this is rotated at isometric view. You cannot select a 3D cut if you're not in isometric view. So we have to turn it and angle it to isometric view and select the window. Don't select the whole part. Then we click on the next arrow, which says rotation axis. What are we going to have it rotate around? Well, that's the axis. It could be this. It could be this. Any of those are concentric, so it will rotate around those. We'll click there. And how many do we want? We want 6. Click OK. And now Inventor will create the pattern of 6 windows. And that is all we're going to do for the construction of the train wheel. The last little feature is just to give it some color. I like to go with a nice wrought iron look. So I'm going to click on the part name. I'm going to go up to the color wheel. See what kind of colors we come up with. I'm going to go black, I think. Maybe instead of black, I put in iron. Let's see, there's iron, cast iron. Let's try that. Yeah, that's a little bit better. That's a little bit of that rougher texture. We'll just stick with cast iron. All right, I'm going to save my part. Train wheel. Click save. And that is it for this tutorial.